I'm Mr. B, and today we are going to talk about Ohm's Law. Okay, so Ohm's Law is something I teach all my electrical students, and it's something that's pretty important. You're going to want to understand Ohm's Law if you're working on electronics or vehicles, and so this will be themed for the automotive technician. So if you're here from a physics video or something like that, you may want to click on something else because this is just for automotive technicians. So we're working with 12 volts. And Ohm's Law is great because it gives us a good relative feel of how voltage, amperage, and resistance are connected. Okay, they're connected in a way, and this is explained mathematically through Ohm's Law. So let's go ahead and get started. So Ohm's Law is, let's see here, voltage equals amperage times resistance. Sometimes it is V equals I times R. You may see it read that way, but I just used the A because I don't want to confuse anybody. A is standing for amperage. Okay, so a easy way to explain this is if we know two of these, we can figure out the other. Normally what we're trying to solve for is the amperage of the circuit because sometimes it's very difficult to take the amperage of a circuit. So if we know the voltage, most of the time that's going to be battery voltage or alternator voltage. And we can measure our resistance in each circuit, and we can put that together and figure out the amperage. So a lot of times in the field when we use this, we're going to be using this for setting fuse protection or circuit protection for a circuit. If we're, say, adding fog lights to a vehicle or something like that, and we're going to know what fuse to put in there to protect that circuit because we can figure out the working amperage of that circuit, or we can figure out what size or gauge wire to use. So on this, V equals A over R, A times R, excuse me, and I can, if you know one or the other, you can kind of flip this around, but I put this in a circle. It's a little bit easier to deal with. So put this up there. Put V, amperage, and resistance, okay? And I call this the circle. And so if you do not know what you're looking for, you cover it up and you take V and divide it by R, or you take V and divide it by A. If you don't know the voltage, you're gonna multiply the amps times the resistance there. And so you just put your hand over what you don't know or what you're trying to find out, and then you just act accordingly. So divide if it's top and bottom, or multiply if it's side to side. So that is the Ohm's Law circle that I teach my guys. So let's set this up. I'm going to draw a circuit on the board here, and I'll set this up, and we're going to start using this on a series circuit. Okay, so here is a simple series circuit. We just have one resistor here, and the resistor is coming in at 2 ohms. We have our volts is just a 12 volts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my circle again. Let's draw it here. Let's multiply. So we're taking voltage, which is 12. We know voltage. And we're dividing it by our resistance, which is 2, which is going to equal 6. So 6 is how many amps we're pushing in this simple circuit. So 6 amps. Okay, so it's important also to remember that these are going to change when we get to parallel. But right now, to find the total resistance, I'm just going to add up any resistance that I have, and I'm going to divide into voltage, and that's going to tell me how many amps my circuit. So if I was looking to protect this circuit, I would put maybe a 10 amp fuse on this circuit for fuse protection for this right here. Okay, so let's try to have more than one resistor. So let's change this. If we had another resistor here, and say it's 4, okay? So that's 4 ohms of resistance. Now, in most cars, we're not going to see a circuit like this because series, multiple load series circuits just really don't exist in our world. But just for poops and giggles, let's go ahead and figure this out. So for total circuit resistance on a series circuit, we're going to add our resistors together, okay? So 2 plus 4 equals 6. So our total circuit resistance is going to be 6 ohms, okay? So 12 volts, 6 ohms, we take the 12 and divide by 6, and we're going to get 2 amps. So 2 amps is going to be the load of the amperage, okay? So that's going to be your amperage there. 12 volts, 6, and 2 amps. Okay, so maybe, you know, if you have this circuit, go ahead and do a 5 amp fuse to go in line, okay? All right, so that is series circuit. That's going through with Ohm's Law series. Now let's go into parallel circuits. Okay, so here is our parallel circuit, and we have 2 resistors. In parallel, we have a 2 ohm resistor and a 5 ohm resistor, okay? So the formula for figuring out resistance in a parallel circuit is as follows. 1 over total resistance equals 1 over resistor 1 plus 1 over resistor 2, and so on. If you had more and more legs to this, you would have more and more legs to your equation, okay? So let's rewrite this over here and plug in our information. So again, we're dealing with 12 volts, 2, and 5, and we're trying to figure out the total circuit resistance, okay? Which is going to be less than 2. All right, so 1 over resistance total equals 1 over 2 plus 1 over 5, so a half and a fifth. Okay, so best thing to do right now is to take this and to turn these into decimals, okay? So 1 over RT is equal to 0.5 plus 0.2, okay? So we're going to add these up. 1, got to keep writing that 1, right? 1 over RT is equal to 0.7, okay? So now I've got to do one more thing before I can figure out my complete circuit resistance, right? And I've got to take this 1 and move it over here. So total resistance is going to be 1 over 0.7, okay? So I take that 1, I divide it by 0.7, and it gives me 1.43 ohms, okay? 1.43 ohms is our total circuit resistance, okay? Now, we double check that. It's under 2, right? Which means we're probably right, okay? And so now we can figure out the total circuit amperage, right? So we take our 12 volts, right? And we divide it by 1.43, and that is going to give us 8.39 amps. Okay, and so that's how we solve for a parallel circuit. Okay, very easy. And this right here, you know, 8.39 amps, I'd go ahead and run a 10 amp fuse on this circuit, maybe 15 depending on what it is. And so this is all the math we're going to need to do for figuring out anything on these circuits, okay? Okay, everybody, that does it for this video. Again, if you learned anything, give me a like, give me that subscribe, and help me show up in the search engine a little bit easier than I already do. And if you are on Facebook, Instagram, VK, Twitter, anything like that, I'm on all those pages, and I'm updating my Facebook and my Twitter feed religiously, so go ahead and check in on that. And I hope that this video taught you something. And leave me in the comments if you're having issues and maybe this video helped you, or if you have any questions. I'm always up for answering questions in the comments of the video. But for now, that's it, and we'll see you next time.